Hey guys, this is Brittany Hedges. I am going to try to make this as painless as possible, and hopefully, I don't sound like I'm just rambling on. So here we go. This is kind of just what I've came up with for the class summary, or really, I kind of just took mostly the stuff that just really stood out to me um, more than anything from class. So, as far as leading 21st century schools, some of the standards, we talked about the ITSE standards, which obviously I think we've all heard of those. I actually wasn't super familiar with them until this class. I didn't have a ton of prior knowledge about them. So it was good to actually see those standards, kind of see what's in place regarding technology expectations. So in the ITSE standards, talking about equity and citizenship, being a visionary planner, an empowering leader, a systems designer, a connected learner, as far as like the administration standards go from ITSE. So some of the discussion we had, um, one of my takeaways from that was just I think one of the most important things as an administrator that you can do is actually have a vision set in place regarding technology to actually sit down, write it out. And I think it's important to have teacher input on stuff like that too, because really the teachers are the ones using that stuff every day. They're the one making the biggest impact on those things. So I think it's important that the teachers have a voice in how that vision of how technology is going to go at your school works. So, along with that vision, I think that an administrator has a role to set a plan, to actually sit down and make a plan for that school that you're an administrator at. So I know that through discussion, some of our schools have district-wide technology plans, and while that is important and while that is necessary, I still think that as a building, you should have a technology plan in place. That way, you can just set the expectations as an administrator and say, this is what I expect to be able to walk into a classroom and see, at any given time regarding technology, especially if your district decides to take that plunge and invest in certain technology. I think it's important that administrators drive home the importance of using that technology effectively in classrooms. Some new tools for teaching and learning. So a question that stood out to me in this class was, is technology by itself the answer? And I think that's an obvious no. Um, If it was, then we would just have teaching robots and forget the education profession entirely. So obviously there has to be some pedagogy there. There has to be some strategies, some classroom management expectations and things like that. So is technology a step forward? Do I think technology is necessary in 21st century classrooms today? Absolutely. Um, but I think that it's still important that we have teachers teaching. And so I don't think technology by itself is the answer. Do I think it's important that teachers are always evolving um, and looking for those best practices? Yes. And I definitely think that technology is one of those best practices, but it's not the only one. So I don't think technology by itself is the answer, but it's certainly a key part. Um, and I know for our school personally, one of the most challenging parts of implementing technology is sometimes teacher buy-in. And I know that sounds crazy because it's like, well, why would you not want to empower students to use these 21st century tools? And I'm so not trying to like make a dig at veteran teachers, but a lot of the time when you see teachers who are unwilling to kind of make a change towards maybe some newer strategies involving technology, it is oftentimes veteran teachers. And that's because they're used to a different way of doing things and they've been doing it for a long time and it has been successful for them. So I think that's where you see the struggle of teacher buy-in. You know, Teachers coming just fresh out of college or have been in the profession not very long, like teachers myself, I think they're always pretty gung ho about it because they learned about this stuff in college. They grew up with technology. It's pretty secondhand. And I think how we need to implement technology effectively is to just make sure, again, that we're not teaching robots, right? We need to have the proper instructional strategies combined with technology. And I think that's how we do it effectively. I forget the name of the video. I think it was week 2 or 3 that we watched the different videos about the schools that were just doing really cool stuff. It was week 2 with technology. And one of the schools that stood out to me was the high school that was literally taking technology and doing things like taking videos of cheerleading practice and having them calculate like velocity and momentum using video footage that they have took themselves. That is using technology effectively in schools. So I think we need to be doing things like that are taking real world situations and applying technology to it. And I also think that you're using technology effectively if you're collaborating and you're letting the students collaborate using technology, because that is certainly a job skill and a life skill. So those are just a few examples of how I think that technology can effectively be used in classrooms. Um, I forget which article it was that we read, but it was talking about, why use technology if you're just using it to do something a different way. Like, for example, are you really using technology that effective if you're pushing an assignment out on Google Classroom that is the exact same paper copy that you could have used? Well, sure, it might be more convenient to be online or whatever, but that's not empowering the students. It's just using technology in a way that might be easier. All right. Strategic planning. I think this was my one of the most interesting weeks for me, just to kind of dig into my own school and see our technology plan and how it's actually playing out in real life at the district that I work for. Before I get into that, I thought it was really interesting to see all of the different ways that technology is being paid for through the discussion boards that we did in class. It seemed like in most cases, that there was, budget money set aside to pay for that technology, and that's how it is in my district as well. And is technology worth it? I thought that was an interesting discussion too. I think it's absolutely worth it, and I think it's necessary. I think that we're doing the kids a disservice if we aren't showing them those 21st century skills. Technology is not going away anytime soon, so to not implement that stuff into school, to not make that an integral part of their lives would be doing the students a disservice, because I mean, even if a kid is working at McDonald's, they're going to be using technology. They're going to be using a touch screen to take orders. So it's pivotal that we prepare them for using technology in the real world, because it's almost certain that they will in some form or another. So I think it's absolutely worth it and that it's necessary. Um, the school technology plan that discussion that we had, this is something that actually aggravated me a little bit because of how hard it was for me to access my district's technology plan. I don't think it should be that hard to access. I shouldn't have had to, email a specific person who emails another person who emails another person just to get a copy sent to me. I think that's something that should be on every district's website for anybody to see. Um, so teachers of the district can see it, so parents can see what the school's plan is regarding technology. I think every school should have a technology plan easily accessible. And I also think every school, especially in the year 2018, should have a technology plan in place. I think that's kind of just wild to not have one, because it seems like pretty much every school has some sort of technology, is having kids use some sort of technology day to day. So I think you need to have a plan in place for that. Like I mentioned earlier, I think you need a building plan, but you need a district plan as well, just to say this is what we're doing with this technology, this is what we plan on doing moving forward, this is the budget costs associated with those technology, and just lay everything out on the table for all parties involved to be able to see. I think communication is the key on that The role of digital